Welcome to the CMO Spotlight, and I want to welcome today Tal Cohen, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Stratasys. Welcome, Tal.
Hi, Joe, and thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have this conversation. I wonder if you could start by telling us a little bit about what Stratasys is and what you all do.
Absolutely. So Stratasys is the leader in 3D printing. It's a 3D printing company based out of Minneapolis and Israel, formed about 30 years ago, 2,000 employees, working with the largest clients in all the industries you can imagine. So in aerospace with all the airplane manufacturers and with all the space projects, and automotive with all the automotives, and CPG. So our list of clients holds all the names that you would know and expect. But also not only in manufacturing and industrial, we also work in the medical field, in design field, and down to all the way down to consumers. We're the printer company, so we manufacture the printers and the materials, and we also operate with end clients.
Very cool. For the clients that are utilizing 3D printing, not just purchasing the printers, is it a lot of prototyping of new creations and inventions, or what's the kind of work that they typically are doing with Stratasys?
It's a great question, Joe, because obviously you know the field, that's where it started. It started with prototyping, and it was for a decade or two mainly focused on prototyping, and then new and finer technologies came out. So the finer technologies, let me just show you. Now we can print in full color up to 3 million shades of colors. We can print various textures and with various materials. So you can get beautiful things like this. I don't have it around me, but there's really cool stuff all the way down to the medical field. So a lot of it is, some is functional prototyping, some is prototyping that actually simulates the end product. We also work in the medical field that I mentioned. So, for example, for complex operations, a lot of procedures are too complex to meet them on the first time when you actually operate. So we print out of MRIs and CTs. We print the full replica with materials that have that same elasticity or the same density, so that you can practice on surgical procedures like back operations or heart operations or lungs. So whether it's soft tissue or hard tissue, we do a lot of that stuff with children's hospitals, with cardiovascular divisions, a lot of really interesting stuff.
Well, you think about the breadth of applications for this technology is pretty tremendous.
It is, and we've just moved in the last 2 years into manufacturing. So up to now, 3D printing was relatively slow and expensive, so you would only use it in prototyping. But with the new technologies that we've introduced over the last few years, we are able to manufacture on a changing basis. So when the end product is either similar and have batches of a few thousands of smaller end products that are cheaper than injection molding, or actually have a one-by-one print. For example, for aligners, the teeth aligner business uses a lot of 3D printing. A unique set of aligners for every person, but it's still, it's economical, cheap enough to do, and it's the catalyst of this industry.
Very cool. All right, so tell me a little bit more about your role as CMO. What is your primary, what do you do on a day-to-day basis, and what is your function there? And then I want to hear about your journey to getting there as well.
Sure. So our company is built with corporate marketing entity, with regional marketing that are in charge of demand generation, and with business units that are in charge of the content marketing. And that's how we work, the three of us together. In corporate marketing, we're in charge of everything that's corporate. So it's the tech stack, the marketing automation, the website, the product launches. So when we launch new products, and we launch quite a lot of products, that's managed through our team, and all the other corporate functions like SEO, social, etc.
Very cool. And so tell me about the journey to Stratasys and, where did you come from and how did you end up there?
So I've been in digital and digital marketing for the best part of 25 years. Started my first startup in 1999 in what was called Web. Now it's Web 1.0. But
Yeah.
in the real web, we created a startup company that was a game. It was a predictions market. So let's bet, Joe, that a pink flamingo is going to land on your window right now, or something's going to happen in sports and politics and entertainment. And we sold that to Vivendi Universal Games a year and a half later. Then I joined McKinsey, the consulting firm in Israel. Traveled around the world with them, consulted to various types of clients, a lot on go-to-market and marketing aspects. Then I joined a fintech company out of Israel and initially helped build the entire company, and then focused on strategic biz dev and growth. Then I co-founded a startup that's in the mobile phone business. I wanted to look at the hardware world, which is very, very different.
Yeah, wow.
Had an amazing. We're very marketing focused, so we succeeded a lot more in marketing than in selling products. But we had a press conference in London with 70 journalists. We had some A-listers join us, including Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, and quite a lot of people that created a lot of buzz. Did that for 4 years. And then when blockchain came into my awareness in 2017, I went into blockchain for the next 2 years until crypto winter washed me out. I've been doing digital marketing since. Moved to America from Israel, started helping Lennar Homes, the largest home builder in the US, with their digital transformation, which is fascinating because the idea is to move people along the line of buying a home by kicking the dirt or the walls to buying it digitally. So we did a lot of transactions. This was all during COVID. And looking at how to reduce the need for face-to-face meetings, which COVID blocked.
Yeah.
And then I was invited by the CEO of Stratasys to help with the digital transformation and create the infrastructure for the next level of digital marketing.
Great. I love it. And it's a circuitous path to your current gig, but it gives you a breadth of experiences that make it somewhat unique. I'm curious if you got some advice earlier in your career, or if there's some advice you would give to somebody that's very early in their career, in their marketing journey.
I think there wasn't. I had a lot of mentors. There wasn't specific advice as much as life and people taught me how to always ask questions and never take for granted. So it's actually one of my friends that grew up asking why all the time, and I think that's something that a marketer should always ask. You present facts, you present data. Why does it look that way? Why did you look at it? What can I learn from it? So the 5 W's, but especially starting with the why.
I love it. And that's good advice, I think, not just for marketers, but anybody in business. Understand the why behind things, and for companies to really clearly define what their why is. Why do they exist? What is their purpose? That kind of thing.
Yep.
So I believe that everybody has a superpower of some kind, and I'm curious what either people would tell you your superpower is, or what you would think your superpower is.
I don't know if it's a superpower, but I'll tell you what I'm very good at. I'm very good at looking at a scenario and understanding the business so what. So, whether it's in my day-to-day work, where somebody would say, okay, we want to create showcase channels on LinkedIn. And my question would be, what's the objective and what are you trying to achieve? And what will be, if you're successful, what's the so what? So are you going to add another 10 followers, or are you going to add another 10,000 followers? But
Mhm.
that's a simple example. The same would be when we look at things that are complex. And this is something I picked up from McKinsey, the ability to analyze business opportunities fast, and to be able to cut through the clutter and reach a conclusion of go, no go, or test, no test.
Yeah. So I think that is a superpower because I think it probably keeps companies from going down paths that are going to be worthless or unprofitable or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious where you find inspiration either for yourself or for your team.
So a lot of looking at what not competitors do in our industry. Our industry is B2B capital equipment. It's not a very fast moving industry,
Mhm.
which actually is a challenge and an opportunity because we get to import things that we see in other industries. So things that are B2C on retail technologies, these are areas that I really like looking at, and also listening to blogs, reading quite a lot, and looking at other opportunities.
We talked briefly about the pandemic. I'm curious if it made a significant change in terms of the way you market what, you know, what the company does. Has it changed, Stratasys as a from a marketing perspective?
So for us, definitely it did. Not so much, not only in how we market, but also our message. So Stratasys as a 3D printer has an ability to solve a lot of supply chain issues. So let's say you're a manufacturer, you manufacture in country X, you're building a new product, you want to have a prototype. When I was building mobile phones, we used to get prototypes from Korea. It took us 6 weeks. So think of that time. So you get a prototype, you bring it, you start playing around with it. You say, I don't like this edge, I don't like this corner, I don't like this button. 3D printing, give me a file, you'll have it tomorrow. And
Mm.
that's incredible because it allows you to iterate and reiterate so much faster. So um, we've adopted or we put together a marketing message, which is create unlimited in the timeline, unlimited in what you can do. Tell us what you need, we'll help you manufacture or prototype, or even full-scale manufacturing.
Mm.
That's post-pandemic or due to pandemic.
Very cool. So, as a marketing leader or as a leader, I'm curious if there's certain values that you either want to exhibit or that you demand in anybody that you would work with on your team.
Ask questions. That's we're going back to that. Don't ask questions, and don't be afraid to take risks. So you've got my management approach is work. Understand why you're doing something. Take a risk, because if we're not going to take a risk on anything we do, we're not going to move faster. So explore, try, have fail fast, fail often framework on a small scale, but definitely be out there, get out of the comfort zone and build new things.
Excellent. So I'm going to shift gears a bit. That setup is a marketing matchmaker, and that often means that we connect brands and marketing agencies together. So we don't really live squarely in the space we're not a marketing agency, we're not a client or brand. I'm just curious how you all work with agencies. Do you work with agencies today? If so, how does that work? And if not, then how have you worked with agencies in the past?
So yes, we work today, and yes, I've worked in the past. I think agencies are an indispensable part of business. Now, it depends how much you keep in-house and how much you go externally. But whenever, even if you have a large team that is pretty self-sufficient, there's always areas where it's easier to test and start with an agency. Then if you feel that it's something that is core to your business, then you can bring it in-house. But think about social. When social came out, you didn't necessarily need to have a social person internally, but you should have tested it. You should have played around with it. If if it's become a big part of your business, then yes, bring it in house. But I think that it's an indispensable part of the business. It's always a question of which agency to choose and where the skill set, the right fit, and the right attention. You need to get the right attention not only from the people who pitched, but also from the team that is actually working on your.
Uh, that that's a constant challenge. Sometimes agencies pitch one team, and then the team that actually does the work may be slightly different than the team that they pitched. So we often are working with agencies to make sure that they're delivering the same people that they promised to the client. I'm curious if are there some disciplines of marketing that you feel lend themselves better to outsource externally? And are there certain functions that you would always or mostly want to keep in-house?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's definitely certain functions I would never outsource, right? One, and these are the core competence ones, right? Our product. So our product is specifically as marketers, our product is quite often our website. So that is something that I would not outsource. Yes, I'm open to building a new website as we are right now with an external agency, but at the end of the day, the direction, the definitions, and the product management, optimization, et cetera, has to be in-house. So core competencies, product marketing. So nobody would know your product and your clients better than your team, your website, and then after those two, I'm starting to be a little bit more flexible. Again, marketing operations we keep internally. We believe that we have to have it there, and obviously above all, data and analytics. So these are the things that you need to have a very strong control of. Media buying, social media aspects. These are areas that we are open to and sometimes work with agencies. It's really a question of where the economies of how important is it for the company and the economies of scale. So if you do a 2x2 matrix, how critical is it for your business? If it's critical and it requires, then you immediately should look at keeping it inside. If the ROI, so if your team can do it, then yes, go ahead and do it internally.
Yeah, you reminded me of when I first started my company. A friend said, if the function or discipline or the work makes you money, then you should be doing it. If it's something that doesn't make you money, but it's necessary for the business, then get help. And I immediately, at the very beginning, I said, you know what, I'm not an accountant. I'll never become an accountant. Let me hire a really good accountant to do that part of the business, and I'll focus on the other parts of the business. I think that sounds sort of like what you're saying, even from a enterprise scale, is to say, is it core to the business and it's critical to the revenue generation parts of the business, then maybe we should keep it in-house. And if not, then maybe not.
Great.
Yeah.
Good advice.
So I'm wondering if there's, we as marketers often deal with non-marketing groups within our companies. I'm curious how you show the value of marketing to those that aren't necessarily marketers by trade.
That very much depends on how do you market your marketing capabilities, right? It very much depends on who the target audience is. So again, as a marketer, you always need to understand who your target audience is. But when in the business context, quite often it should be distilled down to numbers. So you should be able to bring your point across. If you've got good analytics, good data, you should be able to say, hey guys, here's what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it. It's going to increase your traffic by X%, it's going to reduce your costs by Y%, et cetera. So I'm a big advocate of performance marketing, of working with numbers and proving it, because it creates a very, very solid foundation for the discussion. Now, you can ask a lot of things, and you should, by the way, but I think that the numbers are a core part of marketing. They don't lie.
Yeah, exactly. The creative is very subjective, but performance is rarely subjective.
And again, combine the two. So give
Yeah.
me 5 creatives. Let's go and test them, and let's see, how that pans out. Which one is the best creative? And it's a data-driven approach to creative.
Yeah.
Creative. And there are companies that do that on the fly. Even they would look at the background behind you, Joe, and they'd say rearrange it, a different element, in that, and they would be totally data-driven, not from a creative approach. And I'm a firm believer in data.
Absolutely. Well, I've actually run the numbers on this background, and it's actually optimized perfectly for
Absolutely.
I'm curious if there's a campaign or program that you've run either at Stratasys or even in a previous life that taught you something really valuable from a marketing perspective because it was a huge failure and you learned something really important, or it was a huge success and it's something that you'd want to duplicate or emulate again in the future.
So let me go a lot of years back to about 2010, and in markets.com, which was a fintech company, we put together something that was called, it was not known at the time, pretty much. It was BI, business intelligence, like deep analysis of numbers, and we had the chief analyst of Israel's airline. We pulled him over to work for us, and we showed him just the entire data, and we let him work, let him get acquainted with it for a few months, and then he started building databases or analyses that show you from a specific cohort versus what the customer value is. And compare that to the cost of acquisition or the cost of media, and be able to very, very quickly understand which media channels deliver, which do not, where you have the best ROI, and fragment it into cohorts, see what the outliers are. So we had a client that was a 7-digit client out of a Scandinavian country, which made the entire Scandinavian campaign look golden. But if you take out that outlier, you'd see that it's a very average or below average and possibly not even a profitable campaign. And you start working with the data very, very deeply. That's my takeaway was, wow, you can really be ahead of competition if you dive deeply into the data.
I love it. So I'm going to completely shift gears and just ask you some questions for fun to kind of wrap things up.
Sure.
The first is there a quote or a book or a movie or a sports team or a band that really inspires you? And what is it about them that inspires you?
It'll be the first and last thing you said. It's a quote from a band. And
okay.
It's my motto in life, but also in business. It's out of Dire Straits, out of the song Breathe. And it says, all you touch and all you see is all that you will ever be. And I believe it. I believe that in life, and I believe that in business. So in business, explore as a marketer, explore, touch, test new things. That will define your growth. If I was to stay an analog male, MAIL marketer, doing postcards and not moving digital, that's all I'll be. Then I moved to digital. Then I moved to to SEO and SEM and social, et cetera, et cetera. So that really defines what you are, and the same in life. So if you explore in life, if you check things, if you test out new hobbies, meet new people, you'll grow. And without growth, I think life is super boring.
100%. And I love that it comes from Dire Straits, one of my favorite bands. So I'm wondering, outside of your family, where do you find joy in life? I know you mentioned you really are interested in blockchain, but I don't know if that's if your interest related to that or something totally different.
Yeah, In a lot of places. I'm highly ADHD, so I bounce all over the place. But it starts from things, things online. So I read a lot. I look at stuff. I meet a lot of people. I go to conferences to bounce through ideas. I'm part of some social groups that are, have like invigorating weekly conversations about stuff. And then, true to form, I explore. So I go to events. I go to Burning Man annually. I go to, just I look at what my kids are doing. By the way, spend a lot of time looking at their metaverses and their games and their computers and their TikToks and I learned a lot from that. So a lot of inspiration comes from all over us. There's so much stimuli
Yeah.
that you just need to say, okay, what's is TikTok calling me today? Is it?
Well, I've often said that just as a marketer, in terms of there are two qualities that I think are most important for being a really good marketer. One is curiosity, and the second is empathy. So am I curious about the world around me and learning from all those stimuli that you mentioned? And then can I honestly put myself in the shoes of the consumer or the company or the brand that I'm marketing to? And if you could do those two things well, then you could probably be a pretty good marketer.
I agree. I agree.
So I'm wondering if there's a brand that you really admire that you've never worked on, and what is it about them that you really admire?
There are a bunch of brands that I admire. Listen, I think I wouldn't surprise you with saying that I admire Apple, which is just an amazing company in terms of user experience. They've reconfigured the user experience, and they lead with user experience. They think, you said marketing and empathy. They're geniuses. I remember I had my first iPod, and I remember that little roller that you can turn around and that moved the songs, where you flip pictures, where you flip them with your finger. Again, another invention. So I spent a lot of time researching Apple when I was managing a mobile phone company. And just the innovation and the ease of everything they do. But there's a lot of companies that are just doing an amazing job being out there and reaching people and just getting a message that resonates.
Excellent. Well, I'm curious if there's anything else that you wish that I'd asked you today that I didn't ask.
Oh, that's the toughest question.
Of course.
I think that having a holistic perspective, having been around the block more than once, having a holistic perspective on the business, on your team, on the market, on the opportunity is super important. It's not all about work. It's not all about get those numbers. It's about creating a group, enjoying what you work together, listening to other. You mentioned empathy, right? Listening to what people want to do in their career, where they want to go, and helping them in life, and thinking the same thing about your clients. So why are they visiting you? What do they want? Understanding your clients is as important as anything else.
I love it. All right. Well, so Tal Cohen is the Chief Marketing Officer of Stratasys, and I really appreciate the time, Tal. This has been a really fun conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Joe. It's been great, and thanks for having me on board.